Hey, welcome back, DCS crew. What's up? It's Carlos back at it today with a knife that has been on my to buy list for quite some time, probably since Blade Show, maybe even earlier. But I did get to see it in person at Blade Show 2019 and Atlanta at the Mass Drop, aka Drop. Table at the booth over there, and the Ferrum Forge brothers were there. They got to talk with me. Well, I got to talk with them a little bit about some of their knives. But aside from that, I got to talk to them about a recent collaboration that they did with not only Drop, but with Protech as well. You see, the thing is, they have actually been doing a couple of things for Mass Drop or slash Drop, but this is, I think, the first one that they have done with Protech that is a USA made knife. So, I mean, of course, I'm definitely interested in checking this out. This is based on one of their most popular models. And yeah, so let's just go ahead and dive right in. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Mordax. From Ferrum Forge that has been manufactured by Protech for purchase from Drop, aka the company formerly known as Mass Drop. So stay tuned and we will go ahead and talk about this a little bit more in depth after the intro. Guys, welcome back, and man, I am so psyched to talk about this particular knife. It is the Drop and Ferrum Forge Mordax, manufactured by Protech to be sold for basically branded and sold for Mass Drop or Drop as it's known by now. I've always known it as Mass Drop, and that's how I got my Ferrum Forge Falcon and a couple of other Ferrum Forge collaborative efforts. But those were, you know, typically done with OEM manufacturers outside of the United States. This is the first one, to my knowledge, that they have done with Drop in collaboration with a company that has utilized the entire manufacturing process and produced the knife here in the good old US of A. So I'm actually really psyched in checking this out. So that being said, this is the knife in question, okay? Guys, I cannot stress this enough. The action on this is freaking phenomenal, okay? It is a button lock. I mean, awesome freaking action. It's a flipper that, I mean, it has a nice little bit of jimping here. It's not sharp. And I mean, that stonewash blade is off the chain. You get, look at that blade shape. I mean, and then when you go ahead and release the button lock to be able to go ahead and bring the knife back, I mean, the action is just fantastic, okay? So, a little bit about the knife, to kind of make sure that we get the right information out there from the very beginning. I'll go ahead and I'll say it one last time, because with all the names, it can get kind of confusing. So I'll say it like this. This knife design is based on the Mordax, and that's specifically from Ferrum Forge, okay? It's the two brothers that they produce knives under the name Ferrum Forge. And the design is from them. This has been actually manufactured, their design has been manufactured by Protech knives, okay? And then what they did was they branded it for Drop to be able to go ahead and market it on their website, and then they sell it via Mass Drop. Or I'm sorry, excuse me, drop.com. I keep saying Mass Drop. I'm just going to say Drop from now on. So, you know, basically designed by Ferrum Forge, it's manufactured by Protech, branded for Drop. Okay. And yes, it is based on the custom design by Ferrum Forge, and they're currently selling for about, I don't know, I think it was 180, starting at around 180 and up. And I'm saying it about because depending on the time of the year that you're seeing this particular video, it could be that there are some sales that are reducing the price a little bit. But typically the starting point for this knife, as you see it here, would be 180. There is a milled version, and then there are a couple of things that they do. In fact, I think that there's about 10 models to choose from, and then depending on the model that you get, the price goes up or fluctuates from there. So think of it as kind of like a baseline price that would be about $180, okay? Now, what do you get for $180? Well, I am glad you asked. So let's go over that a little bit, okay? So just kind of give you a quick look of the knife itself from all sides. Okay, so you can see exactly what it is that I have here for you. Okay, so now the scales. The scales themselves are 6061 T6 anodized aluminum, and then right here you have the insignia for Ferrum Forge. It's very subtly put into there. You can't really see it that much. And I like that. I like the fact that, you know, it doesn't have to be gaudy and you know, have the stamp or etching on the blade. It's just, it's on there, but, you know, those who know that this is a Ferrum Forge design. So I like that a lot. The lock itself is a button lock, okay? So basically what happens is when the knife is deployed, okay, this particular button locks the blade in place. And then in order to be able to release it, you merely press the button and it releases. Very, very simple. It's something that I have on my Tangram Vector, and then there are a couple of other knives. I know CRKT and Brian Ty did one, and it is probably one of the earlier videos that Blade Banter did on his channel. I want to say it's the Ty Tacto. That could be, yeah, I don't really recall, but it is a button lock. And I mean, great action. The button lock works extremely well for this particular scenario, and I really like it. I really like how the placement is. What they've done is the aluminum scale has kind of been worked on here, and it's been lowered a little bit so that the button itself sits just about flush with the scale, which allows it to be able to go ahead and stay it allows you, when you're using the knife, number one, to be able to not feel for it accidentally and go ahead and press it. But in the other designs that were actually automatic, with it in your pocket and being done this way, it was not going to allow it to go ahead and just deploy the blade automatically. So it gives an opportunity to, it's a bit of a safety issue. So there's that. And then you see the pivot screws. The pivot screws are actually flush with the scales themselves. As you can see, this screw is flat, while the torque screw that's up here, and then the torque screws that are being used to go ahead and keep the scales together are standard screws. You also have two flat screws that are right under the clip, which is also has I guess some space milled out inside of the aluminum for the clip to fit flush with the actual scale itself, and then have the flat screws right under, so you're not going to snag anything when you're slipping this in and out of your pocket. That's something that I really like about it as well. So that's something to consider. The blade steel on this one is noted as 20 CV, and that's shown right here under the drop name, okay? And the handle length for this guy is just over 4.5 inches. I want to say it was 4.6 from when I measured it down here. And the cutting edge, interestingly enough, it's just under 3.5 inches. It's 3.4 inches. But if you count the blade from the end of that handle to the tip, you actually get 3.6 inches. Okay, now overall, you're looking at about, I want to say a little bit over 8 inches, just under 8.25, and about 8.2 inches. And it weighs, in this particular setup, at 3.85 ounces. So it is quite a bit, you know, it's enough under 4 ounces that it doesn't feel like you're going to feel it, but it's not going to be a lightweight, and it's not going to be a lead weight in your pocket. In other words, it's carryable. You can easily see it. You're not going to have a problem. Now, The reason why I said this particular version is 3.85 ounces is because if you end up getting the milled version, it does shave a little bit off of the weight. In fact, you're looking at a difference of about 1/4 of an ounce. So it would go down to about 3.6 ounces if you end up getting the version that's milled. Now, granted, you're going to be paying a little bit more than the 180 price that they have listed if you're getting it at the current rate that, you know, they're selling for right now on drop.com. But if not, I mean, in any case, I still think that either design, whether it's the standard or the milled version, is very, very nice. So let's go ahead and see a couple of other knives in comparison, just for size, you know, just so you can see what it is that it compares to when it is, you know, with some other knives that are very common right now. This is the Monterey Bay Knives EWC, aka the Everywhere Carry from Sanford Owen and Ray Laconico. Particularly Ray Laconico is the designer for this one, but Monterey Bay Knives is owned by the both of them, so I did want to mention them too. This one is just about 6.75 inches. You got a 3-inch blade and 3 3/4 inches at the handle, and as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller than the Mordax. Okay, now the next one I have is the is an Adam Purvis design. This is the Best Tech Texel. Here you go. This is actually their budget line. The really nice thing about this is that it has a progeny-esque type of feel to it. If you're a big A Purvis fan, you're really gonna like this. This is gonna be a great user, very slicey. This one weighs in at about 3.6 ounces. You're looking at overall 7.5 inches. So as you can see, it's quite a bit. It's you know, a little bit, I want to say 3/4 of an inch bigger than the EWC, but still quite a bit smaller than the Mordax. Okay, so here's another one that we have, a nice little budget knife for the office. This is the Kershaw Dividend, also with about the 3-inch handle. I'm sorry, the 3-inch blade and about the 4-inch handle. Also smaller in size overall in dimensions than the other two, 420 high carbon steel, but you can actually get this with aluminum handles and M390, and it's probably one of the better knives that you can get for under $100 in M390 steel. Granted, this is assisted opening, but in any case, still really good value. Okay, now let me see here. One last thing here. We have my user, which is a Spyderco Para 3. And this is just the standard Para 3 Black G10 and S30V steel with an aftermarket MXG deep carry clip. Again, smaller dimensions all together, not only the handle, but the blade as well. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about a couple of really good things that I like about this knife, and a couple of things that I felt could have been worked on, and maybe something that they can consider in the future when they're going to go ahead and maybe re-release this or come out with a new version. Because, you know, in a good quality design, there's always going to be demand for it, and if they're smart, they're going to want to keep that around and constantly, you know, quality improve. It constantly improve the quality of the knife to go ahead and come out with a better product for the people that are loyal to not only the design, but to them as designers as well. So that being said, this particular knife is excellent. I think that it would be nice though to see this in maybe a smaller overall setup, maybe like an office friendly setup. This is actually something that is probably on the larger end and probably one of the larger knives that I would EDC. The blade itself is fantastic. It is not a full flat grind, as you can see, but still it is a slicing machine because it's actually very thin behind the edge and cuts extremely well. I have no doubts that the 20 CV that's on here, you know, is going to be anything less than stellar. It's provided by Crucible Powder Metallurgy. And as that CPM 20 CV, I mean, the way that Protech works on their knives, they get everything from 154 CM to S30V to S35VN to, I guess, 20 CV. And they have always done a good job. Short of getting this, you know, tested, Katra tested, to be able to go ahead and figure out what the actual hardness of this is. I mean, the only thing I can say is based on real world performance and cutting stuff. I mean, going through cardboard boxes and, you know, cutting through, you know, whatever I have available that's not going to completely mangle this blade. It's worked exceptionally well. It drops up really well, and it's relatively, you know, easy to sharpen. If you have something like a sharp maker, you know, a guided sharpener, it should be pretty easy to be able to work with. Now, granted, it's not going to be as easy as something like 440C or maybe something like, you know, the 420 high carbon steel that you would get in something like the Dividend, but it is something that if you have the right materials, you should be able to get it exactly to where you need to get it within a, you know, relatively short amount of time. Now, granted, these scales are aluminum, but the way that they've been anodized gives a little bit of a tactile feel to them. It's kind of different than, say, just bare metal. And as a comparison, I do have the Rake P108 SF here right next to it. And let me just kind of put it here to the side next to it, because to be completely honest, I didn't take it out. And I don't know why, because the dimensions are pretty close. Yeah, I want to say, yeah, almost, they're almost there. They're almost there. But in any case, this is just a standard steel frame, 3CR14, if I'm not mistaken, stainless steel. And you can feel, even though this has been stonewashed and there's that kind of texturing from, you know, the stonewash treatment, it is quite a bit less tactile than the anodized aluminum. And aside from that, you know, one thing that I really like about this particular knife is the fact that it has this deep carry clip, and the fact that they went into enough detail to be able to go ahead and make sure that not only is the clip itself milled into the handle to where there's a bit of a hole that's there, that's just, you know, where the clip resides, but they have the screws that are flat and fit flush right where the clip material is, and it's not going to go ahead and stick out, so that it catches onto your pants pocket when you're going to go ahead and take it out or put it in. And I think that that's really nice. That's a really good attention to detail, and it's not something that you see a lot of companies do. And I'm kind of bummed about, you know, a lot of other companies, when they come out with a pocket knife that has a deep carry clip. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and bring out the Rake P108 so you can see what I'm talking about. This is a deep carry clip for the most part, and then they have, you know, the clip basically you know, the area, I guess a hole that has been etched into the steel so that you can go ahead and bury the end portion of the deep carry clip, but the screws are not flush like you would see on the Ferrum Forge Mordax. And I mean, call it, you know, the $180 at work, you know, but they go ahead and they do a really good job. You get that extra attention to detail, and that's something that I really like. So that being said, so what I don't like, I really don't like the fact that there isn't something that is available within the 10 options that is not like an anodized aluminum. I would have liked to have seen this with like maybe micarta inlay or some type of inlay to give it a little bit more grip. I think that would have been a really, really cool design. I haven't seen something like that in this price range in quite some time, you know, and I think that that would be really cool. And I think that that would also improve the usability and the performance of this knife, because this is a knife that, you know, being that it has a thick, you know, stock and that it's cut into the pattern that it has with this blade shape, it allows you to be able to put in kind of like a balanced amount of work. It's a good slicer, but it can put in work as well, considering the blade steel and just the thickness and overall dimensions of the blade. So it allows you to choke up with the finger choil, which actually works extremely well. It's a nice functional finger choil, allowing you to be able to go ahead and get those very, very precise cuts in and kind of slicing tasks. If you have to maybe whittle wood and that sort of thing, this would actually work really well in the wilderness too. But I mean, aside from that, yeah, I think that the way that it's been designed is pretty freaking spot on. There is one thing that I do want to say, and shout out to the Apex Pass Around for letting me go ahead and check this out. This actually came to me from Eugene Kwan. Shout out to Eugene. His channel is freaking awesome, and he actually had this for a little bit before I did. And he came across a problem. I wouldn't really call it a problem per se, but it's something to consider if you're going to be using this knife and being very fidgety with it to kind of open and close it. This knife, because of the fact that it is a button lock, by using it enough, what happened was the button lock kind of seized up, okay, in the sense that it would not press down, and it was literally not allowing you to engage the knife to either open it or to close it, to use it for opening or closing. Because if you use the button, you don't necessarily have to use the flipper. You just disengage the lock and you're good. If you don't, obviously there's detent, and then it doesn't let you open it without some extreme force. But in any case, you do this and you can basically, one-handed opening and closing, okay? Now, because of that, what happened was he's like, okay, something's wrong here. The knife itself is not closing because of the button. I mean, this thing has seized up. What the hell am I gonna do? He reached out to Protech. Actually, excuse me. He reached out to Ferrum Forge, and basically what they he reached out to the company, and when they came back to him, they told him that the button needed to be re-lubed. So what he did was, he put in some knife lubricant in there, and I think you can see a little bit in there, and kind of worked it in, kind of pushed it around a little bit and stuff, and gave it some time, and it broke free, and it was very nice and ready to go. And it is as you see in front of you. So something to consider: if you do buy this knife, be prepared to go ahead and service it. If you do, you're gonna have a knife that you're gonna really like. This is essentially very similar dimensions to a very popular Ray Laconico design that was issued by Drop, and is actually still on there. Has the same handle length but a smaller blade, and it's called the Keen. If you like the Keen, you're probably going to like this knife. I'm a fan of Protech. I'm a fan of the Ferrum Forge brothers. I'm a fan of really good materials, and I mean, a 20 CV, deep carry clip, Protech, had their hands in this. It's a Ferrum Forge design. It's made in the USA. It's a button lock. It's a flipper. Great action. I believe it's on bearings as well. And for $180, that's really not bad. That's a pretty good price. That's a very competitive price considering what you're getting compared to a lot of other things. And you get a nice little, you get a nice snazzy box. You get, the bag that comes with it as well. You get that little Protech pouch, which I think is pretty freaking sweet, And at the end of the day, I mean, you can say what you want about Benchmade. You can say what you want about Kershaw or ZT or some of these other knife companies. Personally, I hold Protech to a very high standard because of the fact that they make some awesome automatic and non-automatic knives. Their stuff has always been very snappy. Their knives have always been very well constructed. There hasn't been a lot of blade play and lock rock, that sort of thing. And for them to step up with Drop and collaborate with the Ferrum Forge brothers and come out with this knife says a lot. And I'm glad that they did this because it takes away from the luster of a really good knife that was made pretty much with everything that you would think here in the United States, and then they go ahead and they ship it to a factory in China to, that does the OEM work. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about companies that do that, because companies like Kaiser, QSP, Artisan Cutlery, I believe as well, Tuya Knife, and to name a few, and Best Tech, they all do OEM work for a lot of big knife designers who want to produce their mid-techs or want to do something that's collaborative with Drop. And that's how the contracts that Mass Drop or Drop had in the past with some of these knife makers. But this is a really nice step in the right direction, in my opinion, for them to use something that's made, designed, marketed with materials, all collaborated with the USA. Really, really nice, and I think it's pivotal. I don't think that there has been another one that has been created in this manner in the USA. So yeah, final verdict, this is a buy. If you have the money, I would buy it. And being now that it's around the holidays, at the time of this video, you're probably going to see something like this go down in price. You may have people that are affiliates with Drop, so they may have a special link to go ahead and buy from them, and you actually get it at a little bit of a discount. And if you can get it that way, by all means, get it, because this is a fantastic freaking knife. So that's basically it, folks. This is the Ferrum Forge and Drop Mordax, manufactured by Protech. Guys, I can tell you this is a great EDC knife if you're into like a medium to medium large type of knives. This is kind of like I guess it would be a Glock 19 size knife. I'll say it like that, you know, because you get other knives that are small, like, you know, the Dragonfly, you know, something like that, or maybe even, you know, the EWC. It's bigger than the Dragonfly, but, you know, not nearly as big as, say, the Mordax. The Mordax is something that you're definitely going to feel in your pocket, but if you're used to carrying a knife about this size, you know, I mean, I think it's worth it. Anything around 8 to 8.5 inches, to me, that's probably going to be the biggest thing that I'm going to be carrying in my pocket, knife-wise. But hey, if this is something that you already carry, by all means, you may want to go ahead and give this a second look. So that's basically it, guys. If you have any questions about this knife, feel free to go ahead and reach out to me at dailycarrysolutions.com. You go ahead and hit up the contact page, or you can contact me via Instagram at dailycarrysolutions. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed some of this information that I gave you in the video. And if you like, feel free to subscribe so that the next time a video comes out, whether it's for folding knives or for fixed blades, you can go ahead and be the first to know. Stop and check in and maybe comment a little something and maybe receive a comment from me in return. So again, no matter what you do, if you EDC this or a Dragonfly or the EWC or something else like the Terminus XR, just remember, if you EDC, think of DCS. Wow, I'm coughing a lot today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.